So what makes a good trademark in today's AI-driven world? There are a lot of factors, but we're focusing on a couple that we think tie tightly to the way AI is interacting with trademark protection. We're breaking it into sort of a two-sided prong. One is conceptual strength and the other is commercial strength. Commercial strength is pretty easy to think about. It's the strength of a brand in its commercial space. We'll get into that a little bit. And conceptual strength is more of its distinctiveness, how distinctive a mark is. And that is a really strong piece that's looked at the trademark office and by trademark practitioners and trademark attorneys. So conceptual strength looks at the distinctiveness, as I said, and anyone who spends time in the trademark world has certainly heard of this distinctiveness spectrum. I remember learning it from the very first trademark exposure I had in law school. And on one end of the spectrum, we have arbitrary and fanciful marks, so marks that really have nothing to do with what they're offering. It could be a made-up word. It could be a word that has absolutely no applicability to the space that that brand sits, so whatever that brand is offering. On the complete other side, you have generic marks that can't be protected as trademarks because they're words that are generic for what's being offered. And then you have everything in between. So we look at fanciful, suggestive, and descriptive. Descriptive is the most generic side leaning that can potentially be protected as a trademark. So one of the things that trademark practitioners are always working with their clients on is coming up with more distinctive brands and distinctive marks that can be very easily protected and owned. Examining attorneys, who are the attorneys that work at the trademark office and examine every application, are relying very heavily on this spectrum. And as we get into talking a little bit more about how things are happening at the trademark office and how examining attorneys are working, how some of that may or may not be changing in the AI world, it is helpful to keep this in the back of your mind. So we wanted to remind everyone or inform everyone of what this spectrum looks like. So when an examining attorney is looking at a prior registration to determine whether it might be confusingly similar to your client's new application, they are not necessarily required to look at the marketplace, but they are definitely looking at the conceptual strength of the mark. Moving over to commercial strength, which, as I said, is probably a little bit easier to think about because it's something we interact with, whether we're trademark practitioners or not, is the recognition and recognizability within the marketplace. And this is one where most brand builders, the business folks and the clients we're working with are often thinking of, oh, how can I come up with a trademark that's going to be highly connected to what I'm offering? We have a client right now in the financial services space, and they keep coming up with brands that evoke a sense of confidence and a sense of security. And of course, those are very common themes in the financial services space. So while they may appear very strong on a conceptual spectrum because they don't have anything to do with finance, they actually are going to have a challenging time because they're going to be very common. And then that's what we're finding. Surprisingly, they'll come up with marks that we think seem very arbitrary, but the space is crowded for some of these types of words in the financial services space for obvious reasons. So some of the things that are being thought about with commercial strength is would a customer associate the mark with that particular source, that particular brand, the company behind the brand? And how will that interact with the likelihood of confusion analysis? Because if customers are constantly thinking of this brand in association with the service, there could be some confusion with another company that's using something similar.